Hey guys, A&A here. Wonder Woman Flight of Courage at Six Flags Magic Mountain in Santa Clarita, California is another underappreciated coaster in the state. It does so much well, having great pacing and forces throughout, but it often gets overshadowed by Magic Mountain's top two, with Twisted Colossus and X2, and is often written off as another clone. But I am here to shed some much needed light on Magic Mountain's newest coaster. Let's jump right in. This coaster is the 130-foot tall RMC Raptor model. It took the previous height record of its clone, Jersey Devil coaster at Six Flags Great Adventure, by standing just a mere foot taller. The other difference Wonder Woman has compared to Jersey Devil is that the ending is slightly tweaked to match with the new plaza they constructed. There is one final overbank twist before you hit the first set of brakes, compared to Jersey Devil heading straight into the brakes after the ending bunny hills. The new entry plaza for the coaster makes a good impression in the back of DC Universe. The crow's nest looks really imposing, and the final overbank flies right over the pathways. Outside DC Universe, the back section with the far turnaround in Gotham City looks daunting as well, with the massive dive loop sitting right next to the ASO Club's restaurant. I also really like the look of the coaster. The red and yellow supports really pop, and the blue trains contrast with the track well. Speaking of trains, these are some of the strangest in the industry. You sit single file, giving a really personal and open ride experience. You feel all by yourself, experiencing element after element with nothing at your sides. It's something you can't get on any other coaster type. As for the strengths, there is this bar that will either staple your thighs or rest slightly above them. If you get the latter, you are in for a treat. As for the vests, they can be a bit tight for taller riders, but for an average person like myself, I have no problems with them and they don't really take from the airtime either. Even if it's tight, your upper body is only slightly restricted by the vest and can still feel every bit of those negative G's. Wonder Woman's restraints are easy to check with the moving loading station, as they pop up on their own and you just exit to the left while the next riders enter from the right. This causes the line to move fairly steadily, but still be prepared to wait, as this coaster's capacity is not enough for the kind of park Magic Mountain is. The trains only hold 12 riders, and chances are they're not going to run all 3 trains. In my most recent visit, I waited around an hour and 15 minutes while they were running 2 trains on a super busy summer weekday. The line started at the end of the switchbacks leading into the indoor portion. So if the indoor portion is full, the wait is around an hour. And if it fills the outdoor switchbacks, God help your soul. When you head up the ramp into the moving load station, you'll notice that you cannot choose your seat. You could ask people in line to go in front of you and try to count what seat you want to be in, but chances are you will be placed somewhere in the middle. You will be extremely lucky if you end up in the very back, as it's the best seat on the ride by far. Anyways, when you board, the ride ops will push down on the restraints as hard as they can. You then slowly roll through the rest of the station while realizing you are now stapled. Afterwards, you make a right turn into the 131-foot tall or 40-meter tall lift hill. This is a fairly quick lift, and you don't really have much time to take in the views of the park. But that makes the first drop even better, as you have some speed going into it. As you crest the drop, the front gets a little lift. Meanwhile, the back row gets some of the strongest and most sustained ejector airtime, pulling around negative 1.2 Gs. The steep, near vertical drop combined with the long 12-car trains creates an insane whip in the back. You then pull into a surprisingly intense valley that pulls around 3.9 Gs before traversing the dive loop. The front gets a great negative 1.1 G pop of ejector airtime entering the element, while the back row gets whipped out of it, pulling around negative 1 Gs. After the ejector pop, you traverse the whippy inversion while still out of your seat. It is quite the wild maneuver, but I still prefer the dive loops on the smaller scale model though, as you take the element with more ferocity and speed. After the dive loop, you hit the most intense part of the ride, the surprisingly tight 4G pullout. This pullout also has some slight back and forth laterals, as you slightly turn right and then left while still getting those positive Gs. That then leads into the most sustained airtime moment on the ride, an ejector camelback. You are still slightly turning while entering the hill, so the front gets some laterals while getting some serious negative 1.1 G airtime. Meanwhile, the back rows get their moment exiting the hill, hitting negative 1.2 Gs. I love these sustained ejector camelbacks on RMCs, and they are usually the standout element on some, but on Wonder Woman, the best part is actually what comes next, the 0 G stall. After a quick 3.8 G pullout, you viciously whip into the inversion, getting some slight airtime entering and exiting it. The stall seems to go on forever while you are suspended out of your seat getting glorious hang time. Meanwhile, the horizon is completely flipped and you lose all sense of direction, and before you know it, you whip out of the stall at the last possible moment, getting another slight pop of airtime. Afterwards, you hit another 3.8 G pullout and enter the crow's nest. The front rows get a nice negative 1.1 G pop of airtime entering it, while getting whipped to the right, getting some nice laterals in addition to the negatives. The elevated term is extremely tight and sustains 2.5 Gs for nearly 2 seconds. And exiting the turnaround, the back gets whipped out of it, hitting around negative 0.9 Gs. After yet another 3.7 G pullout, you gracefully rotate 360 degrees in blissful 0 Gs. This third and final inversion gives great hang time and also a surprise pop of airtime exiting it in the back rows. After another intense pullout, you hop into the mid-course brake run, giving everyone a quick pop of ejector. You then coast to the brakes, usually. I've only personally seen the brake run stop a train to a near halt once, and the second half was abysmally slow because of it, but that was most likely an early technical fault during its first months of operation. But most likely, you'll glide through the brake run no problem at all. Back row riders then feel the front rows pulling them out of the brake run straight into a surprise negative 1.1 G ejector pop. This drop always catches me off guard as it's hard to predict when the drop happens. And it also has some sneaky laterals as the drop subtly turns and is completely unbanked. This combination of ejector and laterals creates one of the most surprising airtime moments. You then speed through this low turn that sustains some good Gs throughout. This could definitely be a grey out moment for some, as you sustain around 3 Gs for nearly 3 seconds. You then traverse Wonder Woman's finale, some low to the ground bunny hops. These hills pull around negative 0.6 to negative 0.9 Gs. Some of them aren't quite ejector, but more borderline flowjector. Some of them have some fun off-axis twists though, keeping riders on their toes. After that, you rise up into the ending overbank that twists into the brake run. Front row riders get a slight pop of lateral airtime entering it, while back row riders get some lateral hang time while they hang sideways. You then smoothly coast to the brake run, ending the 3,300 feet, or 1,000 meters of track. So, what do I think of Wonder Woman Flight of Courage? I think that this is a masterfully designed layout. It has a great mix of elements, has good pacing, and has some decent length to it. It is the third best coaster in the park and should get more credit for what it brings to the park's lineup. I think these larger Raptors would get more praise if the smaller models were introduced after them. Enthusiasts were expecting a fast-paced intensity machine like Railblazer when the model was first announced, but you don't really get that with Wonder Woman and Jersey Devil. But what it does, even without the bone-crushing intensity of its predecessors, is still phenomenal, and should get more attention for what it delivers. That's gonna do it for this review of Wonder Woman Flight of Courage at Six Flags Magic Mountain. If you enjoyed, I would appreciate a like or even a sub, that'd be pretty cool. And thanks for making it all the way through the video, I really appreciate it. And if you have any comments or suggestions on what you think of this coaster, or this video, type it down below in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.